Hi there. I am fascinated that we can do this. I hope it works. When we finished working in October, we were looking at lesson 182. Do you realize 182 to 183 is the halfway point in this process? We worked together in a group halfway through. Now we're going to be working together however we can, but I'm going to try to give you these commentaries. So 182 was, I will be still an instant and go home. And that home, oh my goodness, that home, that place of peace and beauty and joy. I was reading a book, Emmanuel's book, the other day, and someone was asking, what is it like on the other side? And the being said, imagine the most wonderful flavors and textures and colors you can, and magnify that by many, many times. And that's what life is like on the other side. And that's what the home that the Course is talking about is. Experience without blocks. Without blocks on the senses, without blocks on the judgments, without blocks on anything that is causing us, blocks of judgments, that is causing us to feel less than we really can, to feel and experience less than we really are. That's what home is. So I hope you spent wonderful amounts of time being still and experiencing home. But now we're looking at 183. And 183 says, I call upon God's name and on my own. Fascinating. And that first couple of sentences, God's name is holy, but no holier than yours. To call upon God's name is simply to call upon your own. Now, name is an interesting word here. It comes out of the biblical tradition. The biblical tradition is from the Hebrew Shem, S-H-E-M, is spelled in English. And Shem is name, but it's so much more than name. It's quality, it's characteristics, it's nature, it's essence. If I know your name, I know who you really are. I really connect with you. And those of you who've read Sword and Sorcery or studied a little bit of magic know that understanding and being able to recognize someone's name is to kind of have power over them. That is, you can connect with them. You can merge with them. You can be part of who and what they are. So I call upon God's name. I call upon the nature of what God is. And because what I am, what each of us is an extension of what God is, then of course that nature is our very own. All right? In the second paragraph, it says, God's name cannot be heard without response, nor said without an echo in the mind that calls you to remember. So when you find that word or phrase, and the Course doesn't really care what it is, it's what works for you. That word or phrase or sound that gives you the experience of, oh, that's what God's nature is. It's kind of like going home. It's the same thing, really. So whatever that is, we call on it. And when we call on it, it says in the third paragraph, repeat God's name, and all the world responds by laying down illusions. The illusions of daily life, the illusions of the body, the illusions of limitation get laid down when we do that. So a lot of the stories in sacred literature from all over the world, but I'll draw on the Old Testament and New Testament because that's what the Course is about, is telling us what happens when people call on God's name. We see that Elijah calls on God's name. David calls on God's name. You know, all these beings call on that essence, that nature, that quality. And the issues, the illusions, the limitations, the problems, the challenges dissolve, just as it says. The world responds by laying down the illusions. And then it says, every dream the world holds dear has suddenly gone by, and where it seemed to stand you find a star, a miracle of grace. So the world stuff is no longer an issue. You just experience the grace. When you feel that nature, when you call on it. So if you go in the next paragraph, paragraph 4, repeat the name of God, and little names have lost their meaning. So, in that place, in that Shem, in that quality, all the rest is meaningless, yes? So there's several more paragraphs about that, but if we go to paragraph 6, practice only this today. Repeat God's name slowly, again and still again. So whatever phrase that is. Some people, when they studied transcendental meditation, were using a key phrase that was supposed to be connected to their particular resonance, their particular morphic field. And you can do that if that works for you. Some people use phrases out of the Bible. Some people use names out of the Bible. Yahweh, Jehovah, I am. That's a big one. For me, for a long time when I was in Unity, because of the emphasis we placed on it, I used one power. When I said those words, I felt that. I felt that connection. I felt that power flowing through me. Some people say mother, father. Jesus said Abba, Abba. When he said that, he felt that union. He was in the nature. So paragraph 6 says, do it over and over again. Become oblivious to every name but his. Everything else dissolves in that presence, in that knowing. Hear nothing else. Let all your thoughts become anchored on this. So the idea is to just simply dissolve into, to rest in the name, in the Shem of God. And then it talks about other things you can do. And then paragraph 9, today you can achieve a state in which you will experience the gift of grace. You can escape all bondage in the world and give the world the same release you found. And that's the beauty of the Course, isn't it? What we do for ourselves, we are doing for the world. So when we enter into that grace, when we call on that name, when we feel that presence, when we know that all that is what God is, we are freed, and so are all beings who are resonating with us in that moment. And then paragraph 10, turn to the name of God for your release, and it is given you. No prayer but this is necessary. Whatever it is that you choose and that you accept. For Gandhi, he said Rama. And so as he's passing, when he's shot, the words that pass is, oh, Rama. It's in that state, in that oneness, as the body gives up its spirit. And Jesus did the same. No prayer but this is necessary in any situation. And the reason that people use the Lord's Prayer when they're afraid or when they're in a dangerous situation is because that's what gets them to this state. And if that works for you, go for it. Now, in the Aramaic, of course, it wasn't Our Father who art in heaven. It was Avun. That's what he told the disciples to say. Avun. And for him it was Abba. Abba. Dear Daddy, dear loving Father. So, when we do that, all else dissolves. In that knowing, in that being, in that place. And in the very last paragraph on the last page, in this eternal, still relationship in which communication far transcends all words and yet exceeds in depth and height whatever words could possibly convey, is peace, eternal. Now this is that nunc aeterna, not the nunc instans. Eternal peace is outside of time and space. Not you're going to be stuck in a state forever and ever and ever. It is you've transcended space and time. And we know from earlier teachings in the Course that whenever we enter that state of grace, whenever we enter that transcendent space, we've undone something in the past. We can undo things in the future. We have leapfrogged over some of the events and experiences we might otherwise have had to have in order to become and know who we truly are. one in the all that is, one with the source, part of the creation. Thanks so much. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.